Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Are you all here?
No.
No. No? How many are we missing?
At least one.
One. At least or just one?
Anybody spoke reference that he was leaving? Or? Who's leaving? Oh, he left. Home.
Oh, okay.
So you can.
So we're complete.
There's actually another student missing. I forgot her name. Ilse?
Iris.
Iris.
But he wasn't she's not in
Oh, okay. We have another student, but
She's not here today.
Yeah, she said she was sick or something.
Okay. Okay, good. So welcome everyone to this afternoon class. It's a pleasure to be here with you. This is my first day at the Imagineering Masters for this year, the first day with you. I have been working here for the last 8 years, and the first 5 years I was 100% placed at the Imagineering Masters. And then 3 years ago I was invited to start also teaching at the Destination Management Masters. I don't know if you know it, at the other campus, the Hopman campus. It's more focused on tourism. So I spend now most of the time on that building, but I come here for these masters sometimes, for the leisure masters, and also upstairs the performatory. Have you been to the performatory upstairs?
Yes.
It's really nice. You really need to take some time to go there and see the whole, as they call the playground, how they organize their whole learning experiences. It's really, really interesting. I'm asking you to write your name and put in yourself, so since it's the first day, I can call you by name. And the topic of today, as you might know by now, it's appreciative inquiry or appreciative inquiry. Depends on where you are. If you're talking to Diane Whitney or David's co-provider, those of the starters, they would say appreciative inquiry. If you talk to the people from England who are working with that, they would say appreciative inquiry. So feel free to say the way that most suits you. I used to say appreciative inquiry because I work with most of the people linked to the Case Western University in the United States, and they have a full master's, as you have a full master's here in Imagineering, they have a full master's there in appreciative inquiry. So just for you to get a grasp that what you're going to see today in 3 hours is just a little flavor of what it is. It's really complex, like Imagineering. We can give a workshop on Imagineering, but they don't get half or not even 10% of what you get in 1 year. So it's just a little bit of a flavor. And if any of you later on would like to know more, you can talk to me and I can provide you with more readings or videos online. There are some workshops in the Netherlands about appreciative inquiry. So let's see. How do you connect with this methodology? There are two, how would I put that? There are two core concepts when we talk about appreciative inquiry methodology, which is appreciative and generativity, being generative. And before we even start talking about what it is, I would like to invite all of you to leave your places and come here to this side. Circle here, we're not too many. So since I don't know you yet, how about if we do a round of introductions? You can say your name, where you come from, and what is the first thing that comes into your mind when you think of appreciative and generative? Don't be worried about don't be worried about being right or wrong, but like, what does it mean for you? It might be completely different when you see the theory, but like right now, what does it call you?
Okay, I'm Stephanie from Brazil. For me, appreciative means that you have to look into something in a positive way. You know, we appreciate something.
Mm-hmm.
And generative would be, I think, something that creates something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Could you write it down? Maybe look in positive way and creating something. Great. And what's your background, Stephanie?
I am a fashion designer, but I was working for many years in education, you know, teaching fashion, you know, in a technical course.
Okay.
And I did a post-graduation in production management. And I've been in business, you know, in the industry for a while, but lately more as a consultant, and then for retail too. And that was, you know, started all this innovation and entrepreneurship, talking and discussions. So that's why I got more interested in. And that's why I came to get more.
So we have a fashion professional here.
Yeah.
We can ask for advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we go? Shall we do popcorn style? You know how it is, popcorn style? Just pop up. You know, we don't do linear way, but anyone can just say it.
Well, appreciate it, focus on what's already good. So, focus on what is.
What is already good? Focusing on what is already good. Yeah.
Sure, very good.
Yeah, sure. And generative?
Maybe taking it to a next step, to the next level.
Yeah. Taking to the next level. Would you like to say your name? Where
Oh,
you
yeah,
come
sure. I'm Carlijn, I'm from the Netherlands. I've studied facility management and did a minor in Imagineering for 6 months, and yeah,
Okay.
that's why I'm here, I think.
Where in the Netherlands?
In Breda, so I studied at NHTV.
Okay. And you are from Breda?
No, more from the south of the Netherlands. A small village, I don't think anyone would know it.
We never know.
Out of Vossemeer.
Oh, I know.
No, you don't. Impressive. Yeah, small world. So yeah, and
Is it Brabant?
no, it's just on the border of Zeeland and Brabant.
Okay.
So, but I always went to like high school in Brabant, so I can connect with the province of Brabant. a bit.
Okay. How many of you are outside of the Netherlands? 4. Okay.
There are more, but they're not here.
Okay. It's good to know that we say Netherlands, and for us outsiders, especially when you come from a country like Brazil, Netherlands is like tiny. It's just our city of São Paulo, and that's it. This Netherlands. So we always think about Netherlands like the same, and then when you move in, you see like every province, people are completely different. They speak differently, they eat differently, they behave differently. So it's interesting to see the complexity within such a small country. When I go back to Amsterdam, sometimes I live in Amsterdam. sometimes my colleagues here, they say, oh, have a safe trip home. No, just have a safe trip. I said, no, I'm not traveling today. You are, you're going to Amsterdam. Oh yes, I'm traveling. But I don't see it as traveling, I'm just commuting from work home. 1 hour in Rio de Janeiro, you're just changing neighborhoods, you don't change a city. So it's interesting to see where you're from, because it says a little bit who you are, right, within the neighborhood. Where are you from? I'm from São Paulo state, from Brazil, in the countryside of São Paulo, so it's a small city.
Okay, I'm Jeroen. From Brabant, yeah, near here. Also born like near here in Bergen of Zoom.
Oh, really? Oh, so you have connections.
That's where I went to high school.
Okay. See. And I lived in Roosendaal for a long time, lived in Antwerp for a bit, and now in Breda. So, and when I think of appreciative, I think of very like simple, appreciating what is.
Mm-hmm. Great, appreciating what it is, or what is. They can read it.
I was writing a lot on the board yesterday as well, and they were laughing all the time. So it's okay. Generative, I think of, very simple again, but generating, it's very simple, but
How
I
about
think the word says
generator?
enough.
Yeah.
The generative.
Yeah, or you could write generator, because then when you say, generating, so it reminds me of the metaphor of a generator.
Yeah, it's well.
If you think of electricity, this generator will,
Sorry, I'm doing active translation.
Okay, great.
Maybe on the
Okay, thank you. Next, popcorn.
My name is Amy. Hi, I was born in Iran, or raised in the Netherlands. Previously, I studied international tourism management studies with a focus on the aviation industry on the other campus of the
Okay,
university.
so you know the masters in destination management.
Yes, I have heard of it, but I wasn't that much interested in it, so that's why I choose this master's. In my free time, I like to make pictures. I travel a lot, and I also make artworks here and there. So
Oh, great.
I like the creative side of.
Nice. And what comes into your mind when you think of appreciative and generative?
I think with appreciative, listening to people, being open, letting someone being heard, and generative, maybe like creating ideas,
Mm-hmm.
solutions.
Yeah, go ahead. Does it make sense so far, what people are saying? Yeah?
Mhm.
Good. Thanks.
Well, my name is Christine and I come from Curacao. And when I think about appreciative, I think about appreciation and generative about creation.
Okay.
Well, my name is Shox. I'm from Venlo in Limburg. When I think
Why people are laughing where you come from?
I don't know. Not many people are from Limburg here, I think.
Yeah? Yeah, your two neighbors found it funny.
Yeah, so if I think about appreciative, I think about support actually, because appreciation supports helps me to go on the way I'm doing. And generate is for me a thing about inspiration and creation.
Okay. And how do you say your name?
You say Sjors, but you spell George. But I understand it if you say George.
But how do you say?
Sjors.
Sjors.
I think half of the people here didn't know that.
No, it was just
He
George.
explained it every time. Yeah.
Wow, it's difficult.
Now I'm scared.
Yours is even more
It's even
tricky.
worse.
But is this a Dutch way to say George?
Yeah, but you
Yeah?
have to spell it other way. But when you spell it with an S, my last name starts with an S, and my parents wouldn't have my initials being SS in the second row call.
His last name is with an S, so his parents didn't want to make it initially not S relating to the Second World War.
Oh, yeah.
I was short
Is there anyone in this room who can say your name properly?
Everyone, but no one knew it. I think that's
Sure.
Yeah.
You just have to do it phonetically. It's S-J-O-R-S. So that's how you would normally spell it in Dutch, but it's short. No, S-J. So that's a Dutch thing. S-J. Short.
Sjors.
Short.
Sjors.
Do you know the word shore?
Shore.
Like shore, like the beach shore?
Yeah, shore.
That ash, that's the shore.
Sjors. Okay.
Good example.
So would you like to help us with your
Oh, with
name?
my name. My name is Sietse,
Sietse?
and I'm from I'm probably from the most funny province, because we have a special province in the Netherlands, which is called Friesland.
Oh,
And it's full with people who
Oh,
think
funny.
that they have like a special language.
yeah.
But it's a Frisian name. It's even difficult for people in Friesland, because you actually pronounce it as seeds.
Seeds.
and you have to do a funny thing with your jaw, like a seeds. That's the Frisian way. That's why I do it at Sietse, because it's easier, it's more common Dutch. But if you have to spell it, it's TJITZ.
Ah. So Sietse.
Sietse. You sit on a seat.
Sietse. But then we cannot look at how it's written, because then it gets
No.
confused, right?
Yeah. So
Okay. So you're from Friesland, and you speak Fries?
I also speak Fries, yes. If I want to, preferably not.
So for those who are not from the Netherlands, do you know about this province on the north? Maybe you can say quickly something.
So it's a province all in the north. It's next to Groningen. It's two provinces that we have in the most northern part. It's one of the three original recognized languages that we have in the Netherlands, and it's one of the two that actually still is spoken. It's mandatory, for example, for the mayors, for people of
this I didn't know.
every status within the province. It's mandatory to know the language by reading, but also to understand it, and most of the time also are able to speak it. We have a few traditions, like we have 11 cities exactly. They have an ice skating event that goes through the 11 cities when it's possible. The last one was in '97. Other Frisian things.
It's on Google Translate.
Oh, we have like the Snake Week, that's like the Fries Carnival probably with sailing. We have Spoetsjeseilen, that's like a competition with big sailing boats, which is always happening in the summer. We have a sports that's called, they actually have wall, but it's schaatsen, like, and also the vierjappen. The vierjappen is having a big stick. And for example, if you have a stream, this is water. What the farmers would do, they would have a big stick of like 5 or 6 meters, and then they would run, and then they jump over, and they make a competition of that, and they have pole jumping in that sense.
So you have so much water there, you don't know what to do. So you do
Yeah.
skating and sailing.
It's a lot of leisure going on.
Great, yeah.
And you guys, I know the Frisian people, they collaborated to make the language available on Google Translate.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually on, and we have,
It's
it's also
official
Wikipedia. We have also Fries Wikipedia. Yeah.
Can you see a sentence? It's very similar to Dutch then, right?
No, I don't understand.
We can't.
Ik zal het net eens proberen.
So you shouldn't even try
Okay.
it. Wow.
It's not even that hard. If
No,
you
it's
concentrate, it's not that hard of it. But it's if they go fast, if you don't see context. If my grandparents, they can't speak Dutch. They only speak Frisian. They don't even understand the Dutch. So it goes some generations even that far that they cannot even be across border of a province in a small country like this. I still blame my parents for not taking a more international approach to name. Shall I?
Yes.
The appreciative for me is being present, being in the present. And generative is for me building upon energies. So it's always positive energy building, one or the other.
Okay. You know, at the end of the month, you're gonna have a 3 days workshop on experience design, right? And I'm one of the facilitators, and one of the co-facilitators is from Friesland. So you can talk to her in your own language. Next one.
Okay, my name is Florina. I'm from Tilburg, so in Noord-Brabant. Hoe zeg je dat op zijn? Noord-Brabant?
Yeah.
Okay, Noord-Brabant. It's just 13 minutes by train from Breda, so it's pretty close. And do I need to tell more?
What is appreciative?
Okay, appreciative is, I think, being open-minded and support each other, but other people already said that.
No, but you can just put one
open-minded.
extra point here.
And generative is, I think, do it together. So build on each other. Together you make something.
Do it together. Good.
Hi, I'm Alma. I'm from Mexico, and for me, appreciative is to be aware of the value of something, or
Yeah.
and generative is to create ideas.
We're getting a good selection of ideas. Have one here, to the
I'm Mirta from Rotterdam, and I actually didn't say something that isn't already written, because I was also thinking appreciating and not generator, but generating.
Okay, so when you look at what has been already offered, where would you put an extra point?
Appreciating what is.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do we do?
Just put one extra. And generative?
Yeah, I actually didn't even know what the word was. So I think all of them.
Fits for you.
Yeah.
Is it a bit clear what?
Yeah, it is now, but I've heard of this word, but I didn't use it ever.
So this afternoon we're gonna hear more, and then you can see how is the connection between generativity and appreciative.
Hi, I'm Juliette. I'm from Brabant, a small village called Kaatsheuvel.
Anyone else?
Efteling.
Yeah, also called Efteling. It's a big amusement park and it's like 3/4 from the village, so that's why.
Bigger than the village.
If you said that.
Yeah, it's bigger than the village. Yeah, there are more people living in the Efteling. That's it. Yeah, when I think of appreciative, yesterday we prepared an OD case on this topic. So the first thing that's come in my mind were the
On which topic?
on the appreciative inquiry.
Okay.
So
All of you?
No.
No.
I don't want we had to choose one.
Also, some of you already have a clue about what it is.
Yeah, just a small, small.
Okay. Okay, so you can help me today.
Yeah, I saw that it's like working with the 4 I's or the 4 D's when you do research and you do interviews and you just listen to the stories and the experiences and not focus on the negative, but just when they speak about something, just ask about how they feel and how they would imagine that in a story. So that's what I think about this year, but I don't know if I understand it well.
Yeah. And can you connect already with generative?
No, sorry, no. not
Okay.
yet.
So where would you put an extra point here? From what you said? In generative?
Creation and co-creation.
Great.
My English name is Mandy, but actually my Chinese name is Lin Ye. Okay, and in Cantonese is Man Yi. It is very similar to Mandy, so I picked Mandy as my English name. Okay. Then,
So you have 3 names.
yeah, 3 names. And I'm the
And where are you from?
China, exchange student from China, and I have given more specific introduction in the second day, I think. And I want to be the last one to speak because I want to listen to your introduction very carefully and try to remember your names.
We have that.
Yeah. But it's sometimes difficult for me. And appreciative, I think it's I'm more agree with this sentence that is look in a positive way, and if you cannot be appreciative now, maybe you can be more appreciative for the future. And then generative, I think that means to be creative or co-creative to help some new ideas come up. So I think.
And maybe here then as well? Creativity.
And the last one, creating new one.
Okay. Great. I think we have a good collection and what?
Okay. Well, on these, I live in a
Let's see.
Yeah, the sea. My parents want something different, I think. So. I live in Breda now. I come from a small village near here, near Den Bosch.
Den Bosch.
It's called Milan. Yeah, really more cows than people. So. I did the project with Juliette about the appreciative degree in Marie, so I think we got kind of the same idea about it. So.
Okay. So would you also, which one would you, or would you take one extra?
Maybe like the look in a positive way, maybe building on each other's positively.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, actually, maybe the same what you said, maybe the creativity, co-creating together. So.
Thank you. Are we finished? Okay. Well, just a short introduction of myself. My name is Celiane. I don't think it's that difficult, is it? Celiane. If I say my full name, I'm sure you're going to have some difficulties to say it. If you look at the screen there, how would you say my name?
Camargo Borges.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Celiane Camargo Borges. In the Netherlands, they call me Camargo Borges, and actually it's Camargo Borges. So I come from Brazil. I have been living here for the last 8 years. So my background is psychology. I used to work with social psychology and used to work with team building, interactions, relationships, and I'm very much interested in design approaches, but using how can you design for conversations? How can you design conversations that help people to come together, to find some common grounds, to find a sense of ownership, and really feel motivated to change something. So I try to bring my knowledge of psychology, social psychology here at the Imagineering Masters. And yeah, so I will be teaching you here today. I will be with you at the Experience Design, the 3 days. And yeah, unfortunately this year I cannot be an advisor. Usually I also advise some research, some papers you're going to be writing, but this year I didn't have enough hours to do that. But I will be close, I will be around, so we can always keep in touch. So I think we can go back to our seat, and I want to show you the so the group that is working with appreciative inquiry, you saw these 4 Ds, right? And have you read something about appreciative inquiry being also a design methodology? So it's also in the field of design, and it is used for research as well as for intervention. So you have professionals using the 4D to try to transform organizations, but you have also researchers, especially in the area of action research, when you are really immersed in your field, using these 4Ds to collect data at the same time to transform the spaces. So this is the famous model. You start with discovery, and discovery here, it's about discovering the place, discovering the organizations. But not just discovering in general, but as some of you already said, discovering the strength. Discovering what is that makes this organization alive. Even though if you are in moments of crisis, if you are a consultant hired to try to save an organization from bankruptcy, if there is still existing, there might be something burning and flourishing somewhere, and then you want to discover this core asset. And then from this core assets, you go into the dream, which you take these findings and try to dream about future opportunities that you have for that system. From there, you try to design, so you're gonna prototype all these dreams. How can you make this come true? And then the destiny, it's about really implementing it. So if you really look at these 4Ds and compare with Imagineering design methodology, you see that there are some similarities, right? The Imagineering design approach focuses very much on designing for experience innovation and designing narrative artifacts to really play with the mindset, right, of the involved to change, to go into the desired directions. But this one is also trying to engage people, focusing on the positive core, and from there designing something new. why appreciative and generative is so important here. Something very important to say here. Being appreciative has nothing to do with being a nice person. And I don't mean here that being a nice person is something bad. It's really nice to be a nice person. But the reason why they talk appreciative here, it goes beyond being a nice person. It's very much related to the idea of language, not representing reality, but creating reality. So this is pretty much from the theory of appreciative inquiry. In appreciative inquiry, they use the theory of social constructionism, that they believe that everything we have, everything the way we live, our values, they are always co-constructed by people in their spaces, related to their culture, their society, their politics. So everything we have, it was created at some point in time. And it's created through language. And language here is not just verbal language, but it's the way we communicate, the way we move, the way we dress, the way we design a classroom. It helps us create reality. Just a very simple example, the reality of education. If we think in this approach of how language creates reality, we can think about before the 18th century, we didn't have schools. This idea of education, going to school, didn't exist. And then at some point, when all this industrial revolution was burning there, all these factories being created, they needed more people getting educated to go to work. So they created a specific type of school where they would have people there learning some skills, doing their tests, being ready and going to work. So they created that. And somehow, through time, we keep repeating it, right? So it's more than 200 years after, and we still repeating the same classroom mentality we had in the past. Here, you are in a different organization, right? But if you take traditional classrooms, you have still those desks, one after the other. So the students, they just look at each other's back because the intention is not to interact. It's just to absorb content. So we keep repeating it. And somehow there's a new movement on education that believes that the real learning should come also from interaction, from process. And then the communication is different. So now we have a circle here. So this circle will create another kind of learning and therefore another kind of professional. So you are creating new realities. Is that clear in this example? How language is not just representing something out there, but is creating the way we act and therefore the reality we create. If we have this understanding on language, then you go to appreciative inquiry and they say, well, if language is creating the world and not just representing, if we are speaking in a language of problems, we are creating a reality of problems because we are inviting people to look at what's wrong. Therefore, they're going to act upon that and create that reality. But if we start embracing a language of possibilities, we're going to therefore create a reality of possibilities. So let's stop focusing on problem solving and start focusing on what is giving life to a system. And from there, we help it grow. And if it grows, the problem eventually will dissolve, right? So this is very core on appreciative inquiry. And that's why I like the way you are describing here, because it's pretty much connected to this, right? Let's see if we can hang here. So when we talk about focus on what is already good, there's something there that gives life to the system, and you want to focus that and appreciate that and being open for communication. So you want to help people being aware of what is valued. Traditionally, we are educated to look at problems, right? So sometimes when I present appreciative inquiry, they say, oh, but you have to leave space to talk to the problems, because when you have a problem, people want to talk about the problem. So even if you're giving a positive approach, we cannot hide their problems. And I say, okay, it's true, but why we never do the other way around? When we are talking about problems, what is going wrong, we never say, but we need to leave a space to tell what's great. We never do that, because we are educated to be more problem-oriented. Because that is you are learning about paradigm shift, right? In science, in society, in block 1 now, Imagineering. The classical way of looking at it, I don't know if Diana already talked to you about the metaphor of machine and living systems. And when you have a machine metaphor, you are talking about a closed system. So you have a problem, you fix it, and you move on. But when you are talking about open systems, everything is really fluid and dynamic. So this fixing doesn't really apply. It's more like evolving together. So whatever you look at will evolve. So appreciative inquiry says, why don't we then look at what is flourishing, what's happening, and then it will evolve. So don't forget that this is very core at appreciative inquiry. And generative, you also brought many interesting definitions. The idea is that appreciative, when you are doing the 4Ds, and you might call the summit, some of the appreciative inquiry professionals, they call summit, is a day that they involve the whole system, and they do this 4D in 2 days, going through every D with the whole organization to try to move from within out. You have some professionals that they use appreciative inquiry just the appreciative questions, so you can get inspired by the methodology, but you don't need to use the 4D. You can learn on crafting the questions they ask to help you with your project. But anyways, the idea of being appreciative in that sense, not just being nice, but embracing these ideas, is also to examine old running conventions, or old meanings, if you will, challenging the traditional assumptions about life and organization. So it's about shaking the meanings. So you have sometimes in organization these old conventions or this old way of looking at things. And with the appreciative inquiry approach or the appreciative questions, you try to help people to see a little bit different. They never thought of it, and all of a sudden they see other possibilities. Also focusing on the capacity to look at them, at some conventions or discourses or meaning, in fresh, new ways. So the idea here is to provoke an examination and a reflection, to reconsider what is taken for granted, aspiring to recreate new ways of being and acting. So you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but you are trying to invite people to look at the same old things in a completely new ways. And that's about generativity. So generativity, you recreate the meanings through looking slightly different into the same topic. Do you have questions here?
I thought I had an idea about appreciative inquiry, but now I kind of lost it.
Did you change your idea or you lost it?
Yeah.
What was your idea before?
It felt much more simple than now.
I have to tell you that I see many professionals using a very simple way, but simple in the bad sense, like simplistic. Oh, I'm using appreciative inquiry. And it means I'm just trying to be positive about something. So this is not using appreciative inquiry. In your research, if you say I'm using appreciative inquiry, it means you are using the 4D. Or you can say I'm getting inspired by the appreciative inquiry approach by using the appreciative questions,
By just using elements of it.
by using elements of it. And then you can pick here and there. But yes, appreciative inquiry is more complex. Exactly. It's more complex than many people think about it. And as I told you before, you have a full 1 year master's at the Case Western University just about appreciative inquiry.
You talked about the 4Ds. Did you, on purpose, did not talk about the affirmative topic?
Yeah, because the affirmative topic is like in the core here, and we'll be walking around the whole process.
Yeah, but is that not one of the essential things before you can even start a good quality 4D cycle to get eventually the results that we are looking for and not going into the wrong direction because
Yeah.
we're looking at the wrong affirmative?
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, it's weird because we also have an article on this topic, and they also mentioned the 4D cycle, but not a formative topic. And then I looked it up on internet, and David Ryder's article or whatever, I'm not sure. And then they did mention it, but they did leave it out in our articles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that you call attention to that because usually we focus a lot on the 4Ds.
People like the model, but if you read the book, like the appreciative inquiry, like the small Cooper Ryder book,
Yeah.
they put a lot of emphasis on the affirmative topic.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that because
Yeah.
it gives you a nice direction on how to specifically use the 4D model.
Yeah.
Instead of just using it as something that might fix something quickly.
Exactly.
It's actually not a quick
Yeah.
fix.
Yeah. And there's a reason why this affirmative topic is in the center. You can never lose sight of it because otherwise you might be creating nice things, but you are not focusing on what is your affirmative topic. And also the generativity. You might read lots of people talking about appreciative inquiry and they leave this a bit out. But this is really important, and I brought you a paper that if you want to make a copy in the break. Bush, he's a professional from Canada. He works a lot with, he calls clear leadership. It's one way of being more relational in leadership. And when he talks about appreciative inquiry, he also always reminds us of the generative concept that is behind it, that we should bring to the front end. And it's called generative processes, generative outcome, the transformational potential of appreciative inquiry. So I recommend it very much. It's really interesting. And it's also a concept that sometimes is just in the behind and should be more in the front. So what is appreciative inquiry? If it's not something so simple, you could say it is a methodology that you can use as methodology in your own research. It can be a method. So you might have a summit just to collect some data about your organization. And could be a framework of thinking. So you might say that you are using appreciative inquiry elements, but you could say I'm using appreciative inquiry way of thinking when we are talking about language, when we talk about generating new ideas.
Individual.
What do you mean?
As an individual, apply an
Yeah.
appreciative way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As you being a consultant, being a researcher, when you are writing your paper, you say, I'm using this way of thinking. So it's a way to show your reader what is your understanding of people, of organizations. So it can be a framework of thinking. So it's a participatory methodology. This is also important because it is believed in this area that to make a change is made of people together interacting. You cannot change by just changing the rules and roles and tasks, because people, they adapt to what they believe, to what they engage. So it should be participatory and should involve the whole system. That's why the summit it's these 2 days, 3 days in organization in where everyone comes together to talk about the values of the organization. What are we here for? And the whole aim is that you might provide engagement and sense of ownership. One thing is that I come here today and say, well, this is the way I teach, and this is what I want from you. Just take this paper, read it, and behave accordingly. You're going to think, this classroom belongs to Celiane, she does whatever she wants. As soon as we behave on that, we get a good grade, and then I go home and I don't care. But if I say, okay, this is a blank paper, and I want to co-create with you what should be an excellent, vibrant classroom together. And I want to hear all of you, and we're going to negotiate what's possible. Maybe something's not possible because institutionally it's not allowed. And then we can see how can we go around these institutional rules. Can we do something different? Well, we need to provide a grade at the end. But you told me you hate tests. Can we combine tests with some final interview? Yes, let's do it. So when we start engaging people, they feel they own it. And when you own it, you take care of it. And then you want this classroom to succeed because it belongs to you. So with organizations, it happens the same. You see many organizations that the employees, they are like very hidden places. They are wishing that some projects just fail. Because then they're going to prove themselves like, you see, it was never a good project. They want the managers to fail because they don't agree with them. So it happens a lot. But if you engage them and they start believing the project, they won't let anyone fail because it's about them as well. So appreciative inquiry, try not. It is a participatory methodology. They try to involve the whole system, to engage people, and then create this sense of ownership. It's also a design approach in which you co-design the vision of the future by co-creating prototypes together. So when you get into this D, you start designing those prototypes, you start designing how it should look like this future, and then you can implement it. So if you think about the core focus of appreciative inquiry, you can think of a strength-based approach, involvement of the whole system, future-oriented, because it's not about looking back at what did we do wrong, who is to be blamed, but it's what can we create in the future that we can thrive. The power of asking questions. This is very important, and we're going to see more at the end of this first part. Asking questions are like fundamental skill to work with this approach. Because if you're talking about participation of people, engaging people, create sense of ownership, focusing on what is working, you as the facilitator, you should be able to provoke that, right? So if you ask the old same questions, you don't provoke anything. You provoke the old same answers. So here you need to learn how can you craft questions in the way that you invite people to see a little bit different.
So imagine at a school you have bullying, racism going on. How do you apply appreciative inquiry to manage those problems?
Good question. This is a very complex question, but before you think of approach, you should know more about the context. But the first step is, because it's a participatory approach, everyone should be included. And then you move already from this traditional approach, us versus them. right? You have the victim and the perpetrator. No, we try to bring everyone together. Sometimes, depends on the topic, this is a very sensitive topic, we might come before individually with individual interviews and see how you prepare people to be together. And then you try to go beyond the act itself, but what is happening in the system. How this school is organized. How are they creating spaces in which kids can come together? What these teachers are talking about those kids who are being bullied. How do they address? So you start going beyond that problem that everybody's looking at it, but you try to gather more information about what is the case there. And then in appreciative inquiry, you would try to see what are the moments in which this school gets integrated. There might be one moment. Maybe they're going to say, oh, Christmas party. And then you're going to investigate what happened at that Christmas party that everybody comes together. And try to take those elements and say, how can I put this element in the everyday life? So it is complex. You would like to comment something?
Yeah, because that's an issue in our article. They state that it's, did they say that's impossible?
Yeah, they say it's really difficult, if not impossible.
Yeah.
They say?
Yeah, like we have to present this OD piece. Okay, so it's really interesting to get this view on it.
So the who says it's difficult? The authors of the paper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like bullying, racism, those kind of
topics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, they're much more complex.
Yeah.
But there is one institute in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just beside Boston. If you want to have a look, it's called Public Conversation Project. And they are experts in bringing, like, how do you say, oppositions together. So they work with Israeli and Palestinians. They work with this group in the United States that are pro-life and pro-choice, like against abortion or in favor of abortion. And in the United States, that's a huge problem. And they have some techniques that helps people to get prepared to talk.
So this is a case where you would use elements of the methodology and not just take
the 4Ds and go, but taking elements. Yeah. So, there are two basic points that you can focus when you are creating your questions to enter the system. One is asking this question, what in a particular setting and context gives life to the system? And the system can be a school, can be a community, can be an organization. When it is most alive, healthy, and symbiotically related to its various community. So the question is, what in this system, where is this context, this setting that you can see people alive, healthy, really connected to different sectors, to different communities, because it's there that you want to go. Like in this example, I just came up with the Christmas party. So if this is the event of the year where everybody loves each other and give presents, you want to really look closely what happens there, that people come together. And then what are the possibilities? It might be very clear or very hidden to provide opportunities for more effective forms of organizing. Because when you see those elements, you try to reorganize how things are working. So then you can recreate the organization. So these are the 4 cycles. We talk about it. I want to, so it's 3:30. I want to have, okay. I'm going to give you 10 minutes to work in pairs, because you're not a big group. To have a look, I printed here for you. Yeah.
When we go
go to the previous slide?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to upload that. It's going to be online tonight. Danielle Zande, I don't know if you are reading anything from her. She studied and she worked with David Cooper-Ryder in the United States at the Case Western University, and she has some books published on appreciative inquiry. And she talks about some appreciative inquiry lenses. Do you know what lenses is?
Caroline?
Yeah, like glasses, like views. Which glasses do you wear? And she says appreciative inquiry has some glasses that you should make sure you have on your backpack to wear them when you are working, and also core principles. So there are 4 lenses she talks about, and 5 principles. And I would like each of you to focus on one. And you can read the short definition I gave, but you can also look online if you want to expand. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do that, and then 10 minutes we can present to each other. So you're going to look at the appreciative lenses. You're going to look at the discursive lenses. Artful lenses. Relational lenses. And you guys. No lens. We're going to talk about principles. We're going to talk about principles. I'm going to give you 2 principles. 1 and 2 principles. Yeah? And I'm going to give you three principles. So the poetic principle. Good, because we have artists. The anticipatory and the positive. Yeah? So 10 minutes. And I can give you more copies if you want to. Yeah. You can read the definition and talk about it. You're going to explain to the class what do you understand by this lens. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you can have a talk about it. And if you're not sure, you can look online.
David is more focused on vocabulary.
I think just printed more than I had to. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Can we keep it? What you guys?
Yeah.
Misschien ook iets dieper live
Wat ik net zeg, maar dan wat niet gaande zit dan.
Ja.
Ja.
Maar het inderdaad serie of
Yes.
ja.
Ja, je kijkt via een kunst.
Ja, dat wil je
Toen wil ik het al zelf begrijpen. Ik heb het heel Spaans gelezen. Oh, you have to lens over
Wat was het niet?
When you start asking, it feels
Ja, think about that. So that's the one when you
Dat is wel verslaafd. Maar in een way niet.
yeah, but sometimes we don't realize it.
We think we have an idea. Yeah, I think we have to easy.
Yeah. This is the paper?
No.
Yeah.
It's like a file.
Yeah.
But it's good the answer to my question that you gave, because it actually, it's really simple. It's the Imagineering approach to the issues that we have. So,
And here, as you see, we kind of blend using art as an design and makes it, I think, even bigger.
That's because we were discussing yesterday how we can add something to the presentation, and we said like appreciative inquiry from the engineering lens. What did you say again?
The Imagineering perspective on
yeah. I think that would be interesting because it adds so much more value.
Yeah, that's a very good way to approach it, because then you could say, language approach it is pretty good. But before that, sometimes it was fast. That's the kind of rational. Yes, and it says it is an imitation. It's not open to what's the organism.
That's the funny thing with this paper, they like exactly the same study, one in the rural area and one in the urban area, two schools living area. And one actually succeeded quite well, and the other one exactly the same approach. It didn't succeed that much, which shows that it's really a complex issue. Because you can
Access oriented approach, it's not because you cannot just copy and paste. You need to see something that is responding to what you're offering, and keep adjusting. I think that should give an extra value to the topic.
Yeah,
Can get someone
that with generative traditional things, look at
In Brussel. We just looking at
Okay.
yeah, we're weird.
It is an example of art school.
Yes, it is.
Ja, dat is de minste. Ja. Vanaf december ja, vanaf maart
So it says it can always be images for the future. It could be when you're together, it could be an the brain will create something, and therefore we're going to have collective change. Traditional ways of always together
So guys, would you like to go for a break and we come back and present? So how long do you have for break usually? 10 minutes? Okay. So you go get a coffee, caffeine dose, and then we come back and present.
Okay, good idea. I have an article about this. Appreciative inquiry using to promote innovative ideas for better healthcare worldwide, just as you